Welcome, welcome. My name is Mickey Scape Jones. I use she, her pronouns. And today we are going to have a type 2 panel. I am an Enneagram teacher and coach, and I'll be facilitating the panel today by asking these lovely humans who all identify as an Enneagram type 2 about themselves and their experience of living life within that type structure and kind of the ins and outs of what it means to be that type, to have that personality type. So I will offer like a little bit of a profile, and then we'll really broaden our understanding by hearing from each of the panelists, because that is who really is the expert in their type, each of these type 2s. So I'm going to give a little bit of this profile. Type 2 is known as the giver or the helper or the supporter. Think of the one who offers the self or offers help or gifts. And this type is motivated by receiving affirmation, from meeting the needs of others. They're motivated really by the belief that they must be needed in order to gain love, or just simply the idea of give in order to get. The type 2 has developed a sense that if they can be indispensable, if they can really be needed, that they will be secure in their place in the lives of others, in their community, maybe in their workplace. And the attention of the type 2 is focused on the needs and desires of others, especially those that they care about. They are really able to hone in on the feelings of others and then align themselves with those feelings in order to meet those needs of other people and to support those feelings, often having, very little ability to identify and tend to their own needs. So as a result, type 2s can be preoccupied with the approval and acceptance of others, and a sense of importance and even pride from being able to solve problems or meet the needs of those that they love or work with. And they know how to really create good feelings in a room, and to avoid conflict. And they can become resentful if others are not appreciative of all this hard work that they put in to take care of everyone and everything. So I think I've said giving like a million times already, but 2s are known for being remarkably giving, helpful, generous. They're usually seen as being willing to help, and not only help, but being energetic about it. They're kind of the ultimate cheerleader and supporter, and will be there with what you need, sometimes before you even know you need it. And then 2s, I like, this is one of those things that people, can have a negative connotation to, but I love about 2s is that I think 2s are seductive, but in the best way, right? Seduction is really that I think of the person meeting you at the door with slippers and your favorite drink, and like they already know that you're going to be exhausted. So they come to the door giving you exactly what you need, tuned into your desires, and make you feel seen and special. So that's a beautiful thing about the 2, but kind of that underside of the type 2 is that they can be hyper-focused on relationships, and especially trying to fix or mend or control difficult relationships or the conflict in the relationship in order to avoid that rejection or loss that can come from that conflict. They may repress or hint at their needs and expect others to just know, because they have this superpower, right, of knowing what others need, and can be so tuned into that they are not in tune with their own needs, right? So they can be it can be difficult to understand why other people don't have that superpower. There can also be confusion about their real identity or dependency on relationships to define them. So this can be a challenge in relationships, as they can long for freedom from giving, right? Because they give so much. They long for a freedom from that giving, but also the impulse to give is so strong that it's hard to pull out of that. Type 2s can hold a lot of tension in their bodies, waiting for the response of others that they've given so much to, as they anxiously wait for that reciprocal care. So as type 2s release the belief that love and approval comes from their own striving and from the care they give to others, and just really let themselves be, let themselves receive, and rest in that they've done enough. When they can be free to both give and receive, they will become more familiar with their own worthiness. 2s can teach us all about giving from a place of freedom and free will, instead of from being better than someone or knowing better than others or having to earn love. And as they do their inner work, 2s can really show us the gift of being receptive. So that's my take on type 2s. And so before I turn it over to you all and ask you some questions, I'm just going to offer a really short centering practice, and then we'll get into it. Okay, so I'm going to close my eyes just because I like to. It helps me get centered, but you can do whatever you're comfortable with. And just be in touch with your breathing. Notice that you don't have to do anything. You're already breathing. The breath breathes you. You are here, and here is enough. So as we move into this time of talking about what it means to be a type 2 personality type, as we explore the inner workings of who we are, let us remember how we are already enough, how we can give and receive just as we breathe in and breathe out. And as you breathe in one more time, you can even sigh on the way out. Coming back to each other on our screen here, ready to talk about type 2s. Yay. All right. Well, I am going to have you all talk a little bit individually, and then we'll kind of bounce around a bit. So I'm going to start first with Tia. And my first question is really just, how did you know that you were a type 2? What resonated with you from descriptions you read, or even today hearing me talk about 2s? What is it that kind of helped you understand, yeah, this describes me?
Definitely the motivation behind the helping and the giving, it to be reciprocated, and that being how I felt like how I needed to be in myself in order to be loved. The strong desire for affirmation of others. I've pretty much led my entire life. I've led a life of people pleasing, even from a young age, and of course, the Enneagram and understanding my personality, even beyond the Enneagram and things, have helped me to bring that into focus. But definitely the motivations behind the 2.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so it sounds like really the people pleasing, but did you have a sense of kind of your relationship between giving and getting, or kind of how you were always the helper for different things, like in your family, or was it later in work that you were like, oh, wow, every time I'm in this helper role?
Mhm. I mean, it wasn't obvious to me as a child, but looking back, I was living that out. I'm a in birth order. And I feel like I was always the one to volunteer to like help my parents or my younger siblings, especially even my older sibling. And my mom tells stories about even when I was, you know, kind of a toddler, being very concerned about the needs of other people in my family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She was my brother's 15 months younger than me, and my mom would tell a story of when she was away at the hospital having him. I was staying with my grandmother. She came to pick me up. My grandmother said, I'm sorry she looks like this, because apparently I just looked like, you know, circles under my eyes and things. She's like, she's been walking around the house wringing her hands ever since you dropped off. And like, you know, long before it just there are definite like memories I have of moments where I would have undue stress over things that I couldn't help.
Yeah.
When my family was like in um, sort of a financial, you know, having financial problems, and me overhearing that as a child and just feeling the weight of not being able to help
Yeah.
is a really big one, a big memory that I have. But it really came in focus when I, you know, heard of the Enneagram and started doing some work around that with my therapist. I actually first tested as a 1.
Mm-hmm.
So it took actually a little bit of time for us to really work that out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I have a 1 wing, so, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that tracks, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you for that. That's very helpful. You know, I can see the places where you really connect to this type 2 description. So let's talk a little bit about the gifts or strengths of your type. What do you see as the gifts and strengths of your type?
Well, for me, I'm in an occupation where the strengths of my type really come into play. I'm an administrative support person. I have been for a couple of decades. And having those motives, you know, it makes my job more enjoyable for sure, because I just get a sense of satisfaction out of the fact that I'm helping. And in the right situations, there's also a lot of um, positive reinforcement on that. And, you know, Tia, well, without you, you keep everything, you keep played spinning, you keep everybody, you know, taking of, and that is cool for me, for sure. So knowing that about myself and understanding how it works has definitely helped me even do my job better.
Mm-hmm.
What was the second part of the question?
Well, I just talked about gifts and strengths.
The gifts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do see it as a gift because I just kind of see it as my place among my people. Um, you know, people know me. The people who know and love me know this about me, that I'm a helper, and they feel safe coming to me for help. And I love that,
Yeah.
of course. Of course I love that.
Yeah.
Um, I like being the go-to, you know,
Yeah.
feels good.
Yeah. What is that what does that feel like even now as you talk about, like, I saw you smile and kind of light up when you're like, they come to me and they need me. What does that feel like in your body when you say something like that?
It feels important. Like
Mhm.
I feel it gives me, I mean, you spoke of being enough, and that is a big word for me, has been a theme throughout the years for me of sort of this internal sense of like not being enough,
Mhm.
and then learning more about myself and why there was this push when I was younger of being like a high performer, and I felt I'm really motivated. I wanted to achieve things, but also I don't love the spotlight. I don't love being the center of attention, but I really love lifting people up and being the cheerleader and helping. And so it kind of gave me permission to not always be the one trying to achieve something, and being okay and feeling enough in who I am.
Okay.
And I'm a mother. My oldest is expecting a child right now, and I just feel like I'm really in my element with having conversations with her, labor and childbirth and child rearing, and helping her. Like even yesterday, she called. She was just feeling really uncomfortable because she's in the final, weeks. And I said, "Come over and we'll go to the pool." I don't like to go to the pool, but I was happy to go to the pool with her because I knew it was a tangible thing I could do to help bring her comfort, and ease some of her pain. So just I love the fact that I have that intuitive sense of what people need. It feels very rewarding to me, particularly the people that I'm close to. I can't say I can tell anybody what they need, but the people I know well.
Yeah. Well, then what about the flip side, the challenges, or thorns of your type? What are some of those that you've noticed or experienced?
Well, the biggest one, which you mentioned in the profile, the biggest one for me is not being aware of my own needs, and how I feel like that can become a bit of almost like creates like a backflow in my emotions when I don't make it a priority to sit and feel what I need and determine what I need. And there's a frustration involved with not knowing what I need, especially when I'm in discomfort and not being able to name what it is that I need when I seem to be able to so easily identify that in others. It's actually quite a source of frustration for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Tia, for starting us off. Hopefully we'll kind of come back to that not knowing what you need piece, because I do think that can be frustrating for type 2s and for people that love them, right? So let's come back around to that. Next, let's go to Joy. If you're okay with that, Joy. So Joy, what is it about the type 2 description that resonated with you that made you go, "Oh, yep, this is me. I got it." Tell me about that.
It was really funny. I laughed when you asked Tia this because the first time I took the Enneagram, it didn't. And so I now understand. So I first had to take it for ordination process. And when you start, they have everybody take the Enneagram. And I have been in therapy for issues of childhood trauma for probably the past 6-7 years. And basically, because of childhood trauma, I was identifying as a 5. So I saw the 2 and I was like, that seems weak. And so I like refused to identify with the 2. And I remember our person who was facilitating was actually a colleague of mine. And she just said, well, wherever you think you are, the most important thing you can do is grow from there. But I was a 5 because I was identifying with needing to problem solve. And what was the other piece was needing to feel confident.
Yeah.
And so, but I literally just said needing to feel confident. And so I think I retook it 3 or 4 years ago and was like, no, we are 2, we are 2, we are just so unhealthy. So if folks aren't familiar, 2s and unhealth go to 8s, but I think 8s and unhealth go to 5s. And basically I was like, I was so degraded that I thought I was a 5.
Yeah.
So a few years ago when I retook it, I was like, no, I'm a 2. And I think it's because need shows up differently for me, and probably because of that childhood trauma and abuse, but I got to think about what it meant to be needed. So I think my thought around I just noticed that I use the word need a lot. So I don't need to be needed. I'm fine if you leave me in my peace. Need that when you call me, it's for something like it's genuine and it's meaningful. It's important to me to help. I think everybody should be. I'm like, what do you mean the helper? Everybody should be a helper. So it is important to me that that the need is like a genuine connection. At least, like, do not call me because you were bored and you thought it was my job to help you fill. I will help you figure out how to like fill your boredom, but then I need you to let me go back to my life and carry on doing whatever we help you figure out. And that's literally my job now. So Mickey, I don't know if we've talked about the particular frame of my job now. I'm a calling and vocation coach. So I literally help people figure out the purpose of their life and
Wow.
motivations and what they're doing.
Wow.
So the second connection to the two for me is in growth. We go to force, which focus on, I think it's purpose or identity. It's identity. So literally when I am at my best, I'm helping people to determine what their focus and their purpose is. And I'm a very big cheerleader. So that was the last night when you said cheerleader. And I was like, yay. Like people literally, I'm 37 and we'll be in a meeting and somebody's like, I finished this thing I've been working on for 2 months. And I'm like, yay, everyone clap for the I'm seriously like a really big cheerleader. So I think that was my journey to two, but those are my two identifiers. So
Well, I love that, that you shared that because I mean, it's probably one of the most common things I hear is people will really fret about whether it's taking a bunch of tests, whether it's talking to people, even reading books. And if they don't immediately know their type, or if they bounce around a little bit at first, they think something's wrong with them, or they've done the Enneagram wrong, or whatever. And it's not, that's not how any of this works. Like, the point is to start doing self-reflection, to start doing inner work, to realize that this is a thing we can do. And I think even more for historically marginalized people, for a Black person to be able to say, I get to look at myself and it's not navel gazing, it's not selfish. I get to like examine who I am and try and figure that out and learn to love myself more and accept myself more. Like, this is a worthwhile pursuit. Yes, there's a way to do it in a navel gazing way, but there's also a way to do it that's conscious, that is inner work that then will transform myself and transform the world. And so, like, by you sharing that kind of winding path that has helped you get to the map that really opens things up for you, I think that is just a really helpful lesson about the Enneagram and about inner work in general that people need to hear, so that they're not feeling bad about whatever their path is, so thank you for sharing that. Right, it's not always this neat story or like, boom, I had 100% two and I knew from the beginning. Like, no, it's okay, and I also want to point out that you kind of like went into helper mode because you were like, and then you go to, I don't know if folks know, you go to 8 and then you go to 5. I was like, okie with the helping. Like, it is just so innate. Like, you're going to do it. You're going to
teach. They knew that, Mickey. Once upon a time, I didn't know. So
right. And that's the thing, though. You want to help people. Like, it's just, you're not putting it on. You're not having to work it up. It's just literally how you are. Okay, so let me ask then about those strengths. What do you see as a strength or, a gift of your type?
I feel like I kind of talked about the strengths or the gifts. I think, especially, so like, I love that you said the cheerleader and the empath together, because I think this way of being able to, and you also said this, other people, like we asked, why don't other people know this? But being able to identify the ways that other people need to be affirmed or that other people need support, I really and it's such a big part of my work now, is recognizing where people are feeling blocks, and they're really emotional or psychological blocks. And so being able to sense that, and meet them in that space and invite them forward, or help them figure out what's blocking them, it's really beautiful, and it's really helpful. And I'm going to kind of flip it to the downside of that, is making sure that we're not making that about us. I'm not affirming you and cheerleading you so you can thank me for saving you or being such a good affirmer or good supporter, but that it's really about showing up with and for the other person. And my hope is always, and like even when you were talking about you switched to the helper or the teaching, I do hope that my modeling, and this is even, I really don't want it to come back to me. My hope, and this is probably my wing one in justice, my hope is that I get to be another example or model for how we are like mindful with each other and caring with each other, that maybe people see that and think about how they can do it for others. So I don't want it to come back to me at my best. I want people to say, oh, that felt good when somebody did it for me. Let me see if I can do that for someone else.
Yeah.
And I have caught myself, and this goes into the possessiveness. I have caught myself at times wanting to be the cheerleader and wanting to be the person that people turn to when they are struggling or need a boost. And they're like, oh yeah, I caught so and so. And I'm like, what do you mean you call so and so? Why didn't you call me? I am here. I am available. What the hell? And I've not said it to the person. I
Right.
have heard my internal conversation. I'm like, oh, I need you to be quiet. And
Yeah.
we will talk when we finish this conversation with this person. We are going to talk because
Well, okay, wait. Let me pause you. Let me pause you there, because I think that's an important thing. Yeah. Because you did this thing too, so that's kind of a pause.
Mhm.
So when that happens, when you notice that something's coming up in you, and it's kind of this, but I'm the person. How do you do that work with yourself to bring it to a different place?
At the moment or after? In the moment?
Whichever.
So in the moment, I'm a huge mindfulness practitioner, and I do think I used to have to write it down, and I kind of like check out with the person for a couple minutes, and I write down like a couple keywords, like you need to remember what you just tried to do when we think about this later. So now I'm actually pretty good at, I heard that entire internal conversation that was trying to like, because it wasn't happening inside me. It was trying to come out of my mouth. And it
Oh.
was trying to frame the way that not would necessarily have said it to the person, but what I would have said, and the way I would have said it would have been to try to manipulate the person into choosing me and picking me when they needed somebody in the future. And it's like, no, you can't come out.
Mm.
We'll talk later. But it's having that moment of mindfulness that this was happening, and we're gonna pinpoint, so we'll have this conversation later. So when I finish, and so I do coaching and spiritual direction and consulting, so I usually do after action notes. But my notes are not just for the client, they're also for my presence in the. So I'll usually do an after. I'm also a huge journaler. So I was like, oh, apparently that's my journal for today. So that is, I'll do, and for folks who are like, I'm not a writer, I do voice recordings.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is the mindfulness part is recognizing that it's happening and acknowledging that it's happening, and then committing to following up with self later, instead of just going, oh, we don't do that. You can tell yourself we don't do that as many times as you want, and it'll keep coming back until we actually address it. So.
Right. I mean, that gets into, which we don't have time for, but kind of what you're essentially doing is kind of somatic parts work, right? Where it's not that that part doesn't belong. You're like, I see you, but you're gonna have to wait over there for a minute. It's kind of like when a toddler comes up to you and it's like, you're like, 1 minute, baby, and it's like, you can wait right here. And then, okay, now what do you need? Right. And they're not, that part isn't bad, but
Yeah.
you need to do something else right now. And then we can talk later, not banish you forever. Because when we try and banish the part, it just gets louder and more ornery.
And thank you for even talking about how we address, because it's not because I forget where I got this from. And the person said, make sure to thank that part, or to thank that for telling you that something's important to you. That might have been from nonviolent communication training. It's telling you that you're looking for something, or telling you that you need something, but it's not the other person's job to fulfill that need.
Oh,
So
that's
what is it telling you that you need? And then what's a healthy way that we need to find that in
yeah.
our lives without making other people, especially people paying us to facilitate them through something, responsible for providing it for us. So thank you for pointing that out, because I was like, yeah, I didn't talk about, so what do you do to
Right.
act? Yeah.
But that's good too, in that, like a thing specifically for twos is it's not always about getting your needs met from someone else, right? But when you can identify your need and you can even meet your own need, right?
Mhm.
That can maybe even help with the like, why aren't other people meeting my needs like I meet theirs? You can learn to meet your own needs, which is a whole nother skill set. And, so that brings that up too. So thank you, Joy. Thank you. You're setting us up so great, so rich. So Chris, coming to you, thank you for your patience. Tell me about what, has resonated with you hearing about type 2.
Oh, everything. It's like, yes, that's me. That's me. And I think so much of it is like there's like the beautiful aspects, and then there's the like really challenging aspects. And so the like finding safety, love, meaning, identity, primarily through external relationships, and so like just throughout my life, I've been like how to create external culture, infrastructure, organization, practices, ways of being with groups of people. Whether, as like a kid, like forming social justice organizations in high school, and then building vast community. Some of my like most joyful experiences as a teenager would be to like organize like massive parties and or social justice demonstrations, and then go off to the side and just look at it and see people like having an amazing time or feeling connected to their power, and like feel this sense of like, I help create this space in which people are actualizing something beautiful.
Yeah.
And then through that experience, I would feel a sense of my own meaning. But then, so much of the two around that, like the inner being able to value myself without reference to relationships, other people, external accomplishments, like just me of myself, without being like, well, I've got like these 20 amazing people that I'm like organizing with and doing justice work with, or I'm like mentoring these like 5 like up and coming leaders, or I help build this like organization that I feel like deeply it's part of who I am.
Yeah.
And there's a way of feeling a sense of safety, like bodily safety, emotional safety, spiritual safety, like being in groups, and so that kind of orientation to like external. So, a lot of the work that I've had to do like over many, iterations is how to listen within to needs and goals and aspirations but even those I'll be able to listen to needs, but then orient towards, I can only have those needs met through relationship with other people. And so the major struggle for me has been around the like, what does it mean to one, get to the place of identifying my own need, like my needs, as opposed, because if somebody was like, what are your needs? My response would be like, well, I think we need, blah, 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 you know, it'd be like we. And then the other person's like saying I, and I'm like, why are you talking about I? Like, what do you
What is
and
that?
I'm like, what are you talking about? Just I, like, where's the we? Where, you know, and then they'll be like, well, so what do you need? And I'll be like, well, what do you need? And then it's like, how do we meet our needs together? And next thing you know, so the idea of being like, okay, articulate your needs. Yes, like that was a whole journey. But then that was like, how do I create different kinds of infrastructure and culture with other groups of people to meet those needs?
Yeah.
But the idea then of being like, just me, like that I have inner vastness and inner resources and inner, like I can meet my own needs on like some deep spiritual, emotional level. Like that's been like the journey of my life to figure out like what that means, to listen to those needs, honor those needs, feel like I deserve to have those needs met, not because someone told me that I deserve them, or not somebody like is giving those needs, you know, it's like that kind of thing of like, it's not just like helping others or creating things with others. Yes, it gets manipulative. Yes, it gets like kind of like subconsciously, like kind of like all screwy and stuff. But there's a profound sense of, do I truly deserve to have like these needs met? And don't I need to like do like 10 things for other people to then have at least one of them like tell me I deserve to have my needs met too? And then maybe I do a little bit, you know? So like being able to just be like, oh baby, you have needs and we can meet those needs, and it's okay to have needs, and it's beautiful to have needs. Like that's just the journey of my life, you know, which is then the path into the 4 and like, you know, all the stuff, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's pause there because you said a lot. I want to ask something related to that. Let me just think for a minute. So when you talked a little bit about those like not even sure if you're allowed to have needs. That I could really relate to that because, and I'm wondering if you are all type 2 with a strong 1 wing. I think maybe that's what we have on our hands here. But as a 1, I relate to that too. It's very difficult for me to source my needs because I want to do what's right and what's good. And so I often think of we or as like, I don't know, what's the right thing to do? Not what do I need? I have a hard time sourcing that because I'm worried about, am I doing the right thing? Am I being a good person?
Mm-hmm.
Will a good person have an ice cream sandwich right now? Not do I want an ice cream sandwich? Am I even allowed to want? I mean, forget needs. Can I want, right? So like when you, like if you just even close your eyes now and think about like when you try and get in touch with a need or a desire, what is, you know, what starts to happen inside of you when you try and, you know, feel into that or get in touch with that?
Well, now, you know, because that's just been like major work that I've been doing in these recent years in particular, you know, because it was just a variety of experiences led to me being the most alone in terms of like organizations, vast community, family, partnership, just a whole variety of things. The universe was like, all right, it's time for you to experience like being alone in a way that you've never experienced, which then led to a lot of anger, you know, and then a lot of unhealthy too, like, but I did so much and I did, you know, and like, how could this happen? You know, like I got like almost like, you know, like I played the game right. Like I did all the things and like I play, you know, how could this have happened? You know, kind of stuff. But out of that was like starting to listen, like a lot of somatic work, a lot of like connecting to my body and like the voice and the wisdom and like so for me, the 4 is like this like deeply intuitive, self-possessed inner wisdom and the healthy way that then becomes a force that gravitates me towards actualization, to what are my needs, and that my needs are actually profoundly healthy, and that my needs, and when I'm able to meet my needs, I'm actually a much more healthy person to be in the world. So then it's less like, how am I creating culture so 100 people can have a positive experience of like a liberation education around anti-racism? And how can I create an experience and culture for myself that helps me just feel awesome? And I don't even have to like do it in front of other people. I don't have to do it in a way that I'm telling everyone what I'm doing. It's just, I'm doing it with myself and for myself. And that can be a beautiful thing, you know? So it's like the intuition and body energy that I would often be afraid of like body energy, but like body energy of like deep wisdom of self and this like inner wisdom, you know? So it's experienced it a lot like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and two, I don't know if this will be helpful for you all, but like I look at kind of these numbers that you're attached to as I often call them energy lines, but also resource lines. So like you actually are able to pull resources from the 8, pull resources from the 4, right? And you don't have to go there. You're not becoming a different type, but you can pull those resources, right? And have access to everything that's in there. It's not about bad or good or stressed or not stressed or, but there are some really great things in kind of a actualized 4, and there can be some really bad things and when 4 is not doing good, but you can kind of go to both and you can pull resources from all of that. So I love thinking about it that way. And the way I've heard you all talk about it, I think that's exactly what's happening is you're resourcing yourself from these other numbers and doing a lot of work, kind of inner work. It sounds like you all are not only getting in deeper touch with what your home type kind of reveals to you and shows you about how you've protected yourself, right? Because our personality kind of develops as we grow and we protect ourselves. But it sounds like you're learning, all of you are relaxing your type structure and then having greater access to these other points on the Enneagram, which is really, a place of growth. Because even though 2s, I think often 2s are like seen as the angels of the Enneagram, like it's just like 2s are the helper giver, which is good in some ways, right? It's always good that you have one that people think is great and want to be. It can also lead to kind of abuse, right? Because people are always going to call the 2 to do the thing. They know you're going to show up, you're going to have energy, you're going to be like, yeah, let's go. And so then you can kind of be pigeonholed, right, into all these helping positions, but maybe they're not asking you to speak at the microphone, or they're not, and you have the talent and the training to do that, right? But you just pigeonholed again and again, right? So there's ways that can happen. And there's ways also you can get away with kind of the negative behavior, right? You can get away with the manipulation because people just think you're such a sweetheart that you'd never do the things, right? And so when you start to unpack your own shit without any of that having to come down on you, which it sounds like you all are doing, is just a really big gift of working with your type. And so I've heard that. I don't know if that's if you have heard that arising as you all have been talking, but I've heard that you are really starting to unpack, or have been over years unpacking your type, which is really great. So I have one more question, but before I get to that, I want to just open it up and see if you all want to bounce off each other what you've heard other people say, or any of that, or just something in general about your experience as living as a type 2.
I wanted to touch on what Chris said about the isolation, and even something Joy said. I'm sorry, I can't remember what it was, but this experience of, for me, this is what I would call like a burden of a 2. And that is this sort of noise that happens when I'm thinking of how much is external for me, and how much I have to almost get completely alone to even be able to realize what I need. It's like if there's anybody else around, their needs are going to be louder than my own. And it's like if I'm in a room full of people, I will always be subconsciously even aware of the needs of the other people.
Mm.
And so I think it's a challenge, and a healthy challenge to recognize that, and to kind of, be open to evolving and that awareness. And I guess trying to learn to, well, tap into some of the resources of the four in that moment, right? And not be so externally focused that it's almost like I don't even have an identity sometimes. It's like my identity is the needs of other people.
Hmm.
So that resonated. A lot of what you said resonated, both of you, of course, not surprisingly.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. This idea, like I can almost visualize what you're saying, Tia, like that, like you're in a room and it's like you can hear everybody whispering their needs. It's like, everybody be quiet so I can figure out what I need. That feels like a lot, and I'm just like imagining what it would be like, Wow. Any other thoughts on that?
I'd just like to add to that really quickly. So in terms of the isolation, thank you, Tia, for saying that, because yeah, it does. So I also, because that was that part of the isolation is like, yes, needing to be alone a lot. I am a high level introvert. But the other part of it is, and I felt like Chris was maybe alluding to this in his share, is the past several years, and this is probably part of my trauma therapy as well. I literally have had to start reestablishing relationships because part of that was learning. So we're out in the world and we're out in the world with whomever we're surrounded by. But I realized that for my health and wellness, I need to focus relationships with people who are grounded and centered and aren't constantly projecting their needs or asking me to fill their needs, because it's like that yes and like I have to learn that it's not my responsibility to fulfill everybody's needs, but also we live in a world where people are constantly telling you that you are responsible for fulfilling their needs. So there was a period of about 3 years where I literally was kind of isolated relationally because I had to start looking at and breaking down the relationships that I had. And so when we do that, like when we project our needs on other people, Mickey, I love you stressing you like none of this is about people being villains. A lot of that is taught behavior. A lot of it is learned behavior, and it's also not healthy because we pull on other people who may not be able to be pulled. But so it's like that give and take of learning to not put ourselves out as martyrs or self martyrs, while also making sure that to an extent it was also, but I also need to make sure that as much as possible, my most grounded and most important, most significant relationships are with people who aren't going to keep pulling on me or try to push me places. Because so I have family members, we love each other and we don't spend as much time together as we used to, because my boundary is that I can't be with folks who are, it's for me, overly demanding. So I just, and that's hard probably for people to hear because, and that's part of growth. When I say it's my boundaries, it's because being with them and the way that their energy presently is, and the way my energy presently is both of us together, is like pulling me back and regressing me into a place that I don't want to be anymore. So I do have to have some distance from folks, but at this moment, it's a lot of folks because a lot of folks don't realize, like when we were talking about that whispering, it's not just the like emotional, psychological projection. Some of it is just out and out. But I just assumed you're not going to argue with me right now about what I am and am not going to do with my life. More importantly, I'm not going to argue with you. So we'll just, and let that be that. And it is it does feel isolating, and probably very much so for folks who may be introverts. So
Mm,
that's that.
yeah. Thanks, Joy. Yeah, that boundaries thing. I mean, there are ways each type needs to work on boundaries, but I see what you're saying here about, like, your boundaries. Part of establishing boundaries is getting really clear on who you can be in relationship with in what ways. Yeah.
It makes me wonder if twos are more prone toward codependent relationships
Mm,
than maybe other types,
yeah.
or some other types.
I mean, it would seem like that could be a danger.
Yeah.
Sure, there's some thing written somewhere out there about that, but I think, because our type, one way we can look at it is like 9 different ways we try and get love or try and feel secure or safe. There's probably a way that each type is susceptible to codependency. Maybe it looks the most like codependency for twos because it's like that I'm going to help you. You need me. I need you to need me. There's a particular way it looks. So it might be the most kind of, obvious thing. Chris, anything to add to as a reflection on what they've said?
Yeah, I mean, I think just the codependency and the kind of, again, that like I think there's like a beautiful thing about kind of being we oriented,
Yeah.
but oftentimes like I'd be like, okay, even in the we, how much of that is about, well, as long as you're like really good, then I'm good. And so, then like being able to be like, like a friend of mine was like, okay, when you prioritize yourself, and it's not a dichotomous thing. Like you can prioritize yourself, and showing up in a healthy, grounded way can then also prioritize and strengthen the we. It's not like there's the I and then there's the we, and like it's only one or the other.
Yeah.
So I think that has been an important thing for me around like I and we can each coexist, but the I doesn't have to only be valid or have worth because of the relationship to the we.
Yeah.
And so, and I just think, I mean, like, like twos have like all kinds of superpowers, like that I love, I mean, here I was like a young white guy, and then I learned early on about like, white supremacy and racism, and then patriarchy and feminism. And it was just like, oh my God. And like that set my entire life in this direction of like, I need to organize like white folks around racial justice. I need to organize men. So there's like so much too that's like, I need to like, like do this work in conjunction with like trying to build like multiracial movements for justice. And I'm going to play my role within this. But the two, instead of being like, oh, I just got to tell everybody that they're messed up, it was like, how do I help people be awesome for anti-racism? How do I help men in myself like try to be awesome for feminism? And so like we need to create culture, we need to create resources, we need to create organizations, we need to so like build info. So like there was all that, but then within myself I would still be sort of like, if I wasn't doing all those things, and if I wasn't like in relationship with like all these amazing people, like would I still be like, would somebody still love me? Like that kind of just like inner sense of like lovability, like unconditional lovability, like that's really hard.
Well,
and for me to self-abandon myself, for me to have the self-love for myself that's unconditional, as opposed to like, I will love you, myself, after you've accomplished X, Y, and Z. So unconditional love that is not like, for me, not self-abandoned, like that's been the journey of a lifetime.
Well, and what I'm thinking too is like, yes, in a Western culture, orienting towards the we is revolutionary and is good, right? So again, the superpower of the two, it's good to have that orientation. And what can happen if you are only a person, because someone else tells you that you're good or that they love you, and it is so externally focused, there are inner alarm bells that we have as human beings, but we can shut that off, right? So then if something's wrong, whether it's happening to you or whether it's something that's happening out here, but like you're just trying to maintain, right? Like you're just trying to stay needed and stay a part of this we, that you can shut down those early warning signals that maybe something's up, right? And so that may also, that's a danger, right? Is that you don't have kind of that internal warning system going because you don't have any intuition about your needs, your wants, your desires, all of that shut down in order to serve the needs of other people, right? Like that could be how someone ends up following somebody and in a situation. I'm thinking, I've been watching Keep Sweet, the FLDS documentary, and I'm like, people are like, how do people get into cults? I'm like, oh, super easy. Like you want to belong. And when somebody tells you, oh, you're really great at helping with these things, I'm going to make you my special secretary and da da da. Of course, like, hello, super easy. So it's like, and I'm not saying every two ends up in a cult. Like, please don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, you can shut down all the stuff happening inside because you become vital to someone else's cause, right? Instead of always being able to check in with yourself. Again, it's the we and me, right? I have to be checking in with myself to see if me meeting those needs are still in tune with what I think is right here. Because me meeting the other person's needs could now be against what I actually know is for me because I have me turned off. You see what I'm saying? So that's like literally the both sides of the coin of this, like the beautiful being very in tune with we, and the like, oh no, we're in danger part of, being in touch with we to the absence of me. So yeah, I think that could totally be part of it. Well, I want to wrap us up, but the last question I have, I think is really important. And it is, how do the rest of us, those who aren't a type 2, love type 2s well? How can we love you in a way that makes sense to you, that feels good to you? How can we love you well? Whoever wants can start.
I'm laughing because technically you just did it.
Well, I want to hear what you have to say.
It's just like literally what you said. How can I love you well? So that's true for me personally, because I have a feeling some people might say the flip. They want people to pay attention and figure out what they need. But for me, I want people to ask and not assume.
Yeah.
And so literally just that, how can I love you well? How can I help you feel seen? How can I help you? It's like, if you just ask, but then you need to, like, what you're actually able, follow through.
Yeah.
That's it. Like that, to me, that is a 2 is probably what I'm looking for. Because the idea that people are supposed to guess is, I'm like, and that's probably because that's how I function. I ask people, like, I love you, I don't have time to guess, and you don't have time for me to guess. So I literally spend my work facilitating people to help them understand what they need and desire and what they're actually trying to do. And so when somebody can just tell me or just ask me, I'm like, you are an angel and you are beloved. And thank you.
Yeah.
But also knowing that's a hard thing for a lot of people to do, because a lot of us are afraid that if we ask that, somebody will tell us something that we can't do.
Yeah.
Or that we're not equipped to do. And I'm going to underscore, it's not a matter of expecting that people will do that. It's literally that they ask, and then what you're able to do if you try. That's what matters to me, because you heard what was important to me and you were willing to do what you could. And that's what to me is the actual difference. That's what feels like love.
So just to clarify, if someone, asks you, what do you need from me to feel loved or feel important to me? And then you tell them something and they're like, oh, you say like, I don't know, when you go on your trip next week, bring me back some tea, because I really love tea from this place. and they're like, I can't get you tea, but can we go out for tea when I get back? Or something like that. Like if they are attempting something, does that do it? Or is it like, no, do the thing I asked you to do?
Yeah, no, because asking is the first step.
Okay.
So like that they even asked is the first step, because like it takes a lot of caring to be open and ask that question. And then trying to follow through. So if you're just gonna ask and be like, oh, that's sweet, but because it's like, that they literally stopped and thought about it and are like, oh, I'd like to, but I won't be able to do it. They weren't thinking about the logistics of the tea. They were thinking about if they could meet me while they were on that trip. So that to me is a genuine attempt. And that to me is love. That's appreciated, and that makes me feel seen. So yeah, I would absolutely say it's not whether or not you 100% accomplish the thing. It's, did you consider me the way that I invited you to consider me?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Joy. Chris, how about you? How can people love you well as a type 2?
I mean, one thing is, I think the two, like the strategy of the two for so long is like kind of like doing things and then people appreciating what you do. So, I mean, like one thing that's been really important for me, I mean, for myself to do with myself, and then also with people in my life who are like, this is what I love about just who you are.
Yeah.
Like just who you inherently, intrinsically are, or this is how I've seen you become, but like, it's not about activity. It's not about productivity. It's not about what I've done for someone or something. I mean, that's all good too. I mean, I'm always, I'm a 2, so I'm still going to be all like, oh, I got affirmation about these things that I'm doing. But like, what's really been huge for me is to develop, like I have huge capacity to express and show love for others. And what's been underdeveloped in my life is the ability to receive and truly hear. Like people will say like, I love you, all kinds of things. It's been my work to develop my capacity to truly hear and honor and create space for people to love me. Someone will be like, I'm gonna love on you right now. And I'll be like, whoa, hold on, let me love on you for like 5 minutes. And then you can like give me like 2 seconds of love back, So like actually like allowing others to love me is so huge. So I know that's about me, but it's also about others being able to express like, I just love who you are.
Yeah.
I see who you are. Not the like, it was so helpful when you did the thing. That's cool. Or it's so great that you did this. That's cool. But like, I love you for who you are. And knowing that for the 2s, like it's hard for us to actually hear that. So for those who really want to show the love in that intimate way, it could be like, baby, did you hear what I just said?
Yep. Ask
you for who you are.
Yeah.
Feel that.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to feel that, because my mind will go quickly to like, oh my gosh, I got to give them 10 compliments for the one they just gave me.
Yes.
And so it's just like actually create space, actually feel it, actually know it, receive.
Yeah.
So I know it's like both like my work.
No, I get it. Yeah. I have a practice now of like, because my partner really gets upset with me if I like just apologize. Cause I always am like, oh, if you apologize to me, I need to find something to apologize to you. And so like, if we get in an argument, I'm like, I let them apologize. If they apologize to me, right, then I'm like, I will just have to sit there and take it. Just like, okay, all right. Do I have anything to apologize for? Okay, think about like, instead of just immediately like calculate the thing that I probably did wrong and also apologize, like let it, like let it simmer. Just let the apology wash it. So it's similar with love. It's like, you don't have to come up with a reciprocal compliment in that moment. If something bubbles up, great. But like this thing about just letting the love come, that is huge. right? And so even for the other person, right? If somebody's loving you well and they're like, I just love, that you sit and watch movies with me, and like, but they're not fishing for you to say something back, or, and they're, or even that you're like, then they remember to stop you when you start to go, and no, just take it. Take the compliment. Let me love on you. That is a practice that the person trying to love the two needs to figure out and incorporate. So thank you, Chris. That's very practical. Okay, Tia, bring us on home.
That is so good. What you just said, Chris. Oh my gosh, I so relate to that. And I think part of that for me too is the people in my life who really see me and who can kind of hold that space where I don't know what I need. And I don't even really know how to tell you how to love me. What I always appreciate is when like somebody, we love to say this as friends, humans, we're, let me know if you need anything. And I feel like, that it kind of puts the other person off the hook. I don't feel like twos are quite as prone to doing that or saying that. I don't feel like we're so likely to say, well, let me know if you need anything. We will say, what can I do right now for you? How can I help you right now? And if that person doesn't have an answer for us, we dig deeper. We're not going to just, most of us, I don't think we're just going to walk away and be like, okay, I'm off the hook. I don't have to help them. We're like, no, but have you thought about groceries? You're getting ready to have surgery. Have you thought about how you're going to get to the airport when you're taking whatever? It's like, we just see things, right? And I want that for me, but honestly, I don't have, I have Mickey in my life. Mickey has a 2-wing, very helpful. But I don't have a lot of other 2s in my life. In fact, I can't really think of any right now. And so I really want to be taken care of. Like at my core, if you say, how can I take care of you? Chances are I'm going to be at a loss. Not always, but if you kind of dig deeper, if you would, do that same thing for me and say, well, but have you thought of this? Or what about that? And kind of walk through that process of feeling those needs with me and taking care of me, because it's almost like, I feel like it's a handicap I have. Like I need people to help me figure out how to take care of me.
Like ask about specific needs.
Yes.
Just like throw a general net out there, but like, you need me to go get you some dinner right now? Or when was the last time you ate? Can I bring you some?
I need the people in my life to mirror my 2-ness. That's how I need you to love me. I need you.
Oh, yeah. That must be a little hard.
Be me.
Be me. Well, we just went full circle there.
Keeping it real.
I'm laughing because as I was listening to all 3 of our comments, I actually realized in a way, and y'all can push back if you don't think this is accurate, in a way, we are saying that the way that we want to be needed as 2s are actually the ways that we need other people to be for us in our lives. So it's almost like, and I think I always think about what's missing in the world. And Chris said this, you said you went from thinking, what do I need to, how can I help? But in a way, the way that we're helping, the helping that we're practicing, it's in a way still also the help that we're looking for. And we're like, I will do it. And maybe then it will come back to me. So that's just really interesting, just listening to all of ours.
I mean, we do want it to come back to us. And that's where it can be hard, right? Because it's like we're only inside of ourselves, and then we are friends with people or in relationships with people, and it's like, well, why aren't you doing this thing? Why aren't you loving me this way? This is how people love. And it's like, no, that's how you love. This person loves in a totally different way, right? Which is how this kind of, knowing these things about ourselves, doing relationship and inner work with a tool like the Enneagram can be helpful, because it can create more compassion for ourselves and more empathy for each other, knowing that we're coming from different places. And we can remind other people how to love us well. That's why I love to end these panels with that question. And like, I really eventually want to spend more time like developing some materials around this, because I just think that's part of the thing, right? Is that we can't, it's not about like loving people the way we want to be loved, right? It's not treat the person how you want to be treated. It's like treat them how they want to be treated, right? But it's hard to pull out of ourselves enough to do that. So when we can give a little window into what it's like, then maybe we can come forward with that. You know, we can do it at least part of the time. So thank you for sharing everything you shared, including this on how people can love you well. And I think people will learn so much from hearing you talk about what it's like to be you and to be a type 2, not just the type 2 angel, but also the type 2 as a whole, full human being. So thank you so much, y'all.
Thank you.
Yay. All right.